Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. It's a beautiful morning out here and I haven't gone on a ruck in a week or so and I was really starting to miss it. Been just so busy every morning, every day that I just couldn't fit a couple hours in. I don't like that, but that's just the way life is sometimes. So finally getting out here to stretch the legs again. A lot of things going on in the world today, as usual. Several more countries they're cutting diplomatic ties with Israel, which, you know, you could make an argument that that's biblical, that the whole world is turning against Israel. Don't know. Australia is sending troops to the Middle East, sending troops and planes and all kinds of stuff. So they're getting involved in the game. And probably the bigger news that I saw yesterday is that the United States House passed Resolution 559, which basically is saying that under no circumstances whatsoever will the United States allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon, and that we would stop at nothing to keep that from happening. That no matter what, we will stop at nothing. We will prevent them in any way possible. And so it's kind of like they're setting a precedence. They're setting the table for war. We did another Minuteman II missile test and it failed, apparently. And it looks like that the war in Russia and Ukraine is getting pretty bloody up there. Lots of reports of both sides taking heavy casualties in battles. And so certainly that one still keeps raging on. What does that all mean for us? Well, we've covered that 1,000 times on here. So I don't know, sometimes it's necessary to regurgitate the same stuff. I think the more important thing that a lot of us need to realize, and when I say us, I mean like-minded. I mean, just because you're watching this video, you may not be us. I mean, that's not being cruel or offensive. It's just stating a fact. I'm talking about us, my people. Yes, we're aware of these things. Yes, we plan and prep and prepare and do all the things that we have to do. But we really need to be tightening up our circles right now, folks. I've said for a very long time on this channel that when things start to get worse, like really bad, like it seems like there's impending doom, people are going to crawl out of the woodwork and they're going to want to hang out with preppers and survivalists, self-sufficient homesteaders, people that train and have a community. That's what they're going to want to do, because there's a certain amount of people, like a lot of people just completely ignore everything and they live in lofty la-la land, think nothing's ever going to happen. But there's definitely those people that in the back of their minds, they know it's possible. Maybe there's a little worry, and maybe for whatever reasons, they've just not prepared. Maybe it's lazy, maybe they've just convinced themselves otherwise. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And then when things happen, they panic, or when they feel that things are getting hotter and hotter. And so they're going to try to attach themselves to groups like ours and folks like you. You need to be prepared for that. Some of them might be decent people, but you also have to, weigh out if they're absolutely not prepared, if they haven't done anything and they're just now jumping on board, then are they more of a liability to your group, that kind of thing. But then also just the fact that they're just doing it for purely selfish reasons. I mean, obviously everyone involved in some kind of MAG or tribe is doing it for self-benefit, but it's also because they want to mutually benefit the group. They want to, I have found no matter how tough or intelligent or prepared a person is, the ones that work the best in a community, tribe, group are the ones that have a servant's heart, that they're doing what they do for the group of a whole. They're willing to sacrifice at times. for the betterment of the group. And not everyone's like that. Not everyone's like that. So a lot of people, they just want to do whatever they can, just enough that it self-benefits them. So be careful of that. Tighten up our groups, because there's going to be more and more trouble, violence. I mean, even the FBI director was warning about that this week, of how there's a drastic increase in probabilities of terroristic violence and stuff. There's been more and more news coming out of how many people and what type of people are coming across the southern border. And, you know, it's I told you so kind of thing. And we're just seeing violent uptick. And it's not just the violent uptick, it's also like I was alluding to. Sometimes what we would perceive as the good guys, they may not be the bad guys, but they're not really the good guys. They may choke, they may panic, they may feel that they're cornered because of the situation in the world, and they may turn against each other. The Bible talks about this a lot. And so we have to be prepared for that too. We're not just preparing ourselves from overt enemies. We have to also prepare ourselves from people that we might consider a friend, and then find out it's not so much so. Now, I'm not telling you to be in this state of panic and paranoia. You know, I don't live in it. Those are the panic and paranoia, fear. That's something that I can't stand in my life. And so I push it out all I can. But we also have to be consciously aware that there are risks. And that the biggest risk that we face, I've said this so many times over the years, are from people, just people. You know, not bombs and missiles and EMPs and CMEs. Although the sun is doing some pretty crazy stuff the last few days. You should probably pay attention to that. Go over to Suspicious Observers and watch his stuff recently. But anyways, the biggest threat that we face from people, and it's not always the bad people, you know. It's like I teach my children. Satan isn't this grotesque red little devil monster with horns and a forked tongue and tail and everything. He's actually comes across as being suave and debonair and handsome and enticing. You know, if he was this grotesque monster, looked and behaved that way, no one would want to have anything to do with him. But it's not. He's actually enticing. And it's the same way with sometimes bad people. Bad people don't always come and look like some terrorist from the Middle East or Africa, and it's quite obvious, you know, some kind of, you know, Hollywood cliche, you know, drug dealer, criminal, you know, cartel. Sometimes they come in the look of a friend. They look like they're one of us. They sound like one of us, talk like one of us, and maybe in their minds they are one of us. And sometimes it's not so much that they have intent of doing wrong, it's just that they don't have the intent to do truly good. Their intent is to do what's best for them. And so we have to guard against that in our tribes and in our families. And as all of this conflict, and I'm not just speaking of like World War III, but just conflict of society, we're going to see more and more people do bad things, do selfish things, break trusts and bonds. We're also going to see more and more people try to, you know, buddy up with the people that look more prepared. You know, you got land and animals and gardens. Oh, let's be their friend. That way, in case things fall apart, you know, we can live off of their place. You know, certainly they're nice people. They're not gonna let us starve, that kind of thing. And while you may be willing to allow a certain level of that, you also have to factor in that you're putting your own family at risk. You are, you know, every meal you give away is one less meal for you and your family. So we have to factor all that kind of stuff in. And then when it comes down to it, are they really benefiting anything? And so it's a tough road. It's a tough road making relationships, building relationships, making friendships, especially in these times, because, and for these reasons, because it brings up this whole issue of how to build trust in people. That's why I say you should do this long before it really falls apart. Because once it really falls apart, it's going to be worse. I mean, think about it. If people can't get along now, and that's another thing I wasn't even mentioning. Sometimes it's just that people can't get along. They get offended over silliest, stupid things. Your words hurt me. Well, folks, if right now, under okay circumstances, certainly not the best, but okay circumstances, if people can't get along because someone said words that hurt them, how's it going to be that they're going to get along when bullets are hurting people, and starvation is hurting people, and disease, illness is hurting people? Think about relationships right now. Think about marriages. That's a perfect example of relationships. Many of you are married or have been married. While you may love your wife or your husband, you have to admit there are times that you don't like them quite as much in that moment. Maybe they've said or done something, you're just mad at them, and just not very happy with them. I mean, you don't hate them or anything. You don't like them very much right now. And that's just how relationships are. And that is coming from a relationship where you spend your life with that person. You know, I spend my life with my wife. We share a home and a bed together. You know, we're intimately in love with each other. And yet, even with that, we still may not like each other that much in the moment. So how much harder is it going to be for people that don't have that level of intimacy, they don't have that level of bond? And if it's friendship, maybe it's really close friendship, but it's still not quite that bond. How much harder is it going to be for them to get along? When you're starving and you're stressed and you're worried that you're going to die at any moment, you got to take care of your family. You never know who's the bad guy. And then your buddy, that's part of your mag, that's part of your tribe, he gets ticked off at you and you get ticked off at him. And maybe it's just for little things. And if you can't handle it now, if you can't handle harsh words now, criticisms or differences and disagreements now, how are you going to handle it then? So be thinking about all of these things, because yes, the world is turning crazy and it's bad, and it's probably not going to get any better for a very long time, at least at this point. World War III is most likely going to happen, at least a major Middle Eastern conflict. And I'm seeing more and more people admit that we're at a kind of point of no return for at least minimally a Middle Eastern conflict. And then there's all kinds of other things going on. But I'm telling you, if we don't prepare our minds and our families and our tribe in the way that I'm speaking of today, so that we can endure to the end, training them and teaching them how to get along and how to weed out the ones that are mouth breathers, they're not really contributing to anything. We have to start doing this kind of stuff, because at some point soon, excuse me, things are going to get rough, and we're not going to have time to worry about, weeding someone out and building trust and who's the good guy and bad guy. We need to figure that out now with our relationships, whether it's an actual mag group or it's just the people around you, who you can trust, who is in it all the way. They're just not in it for themselves. They're in it for everything and for everyone. And they're serious about it. And they're not going to let little words and little offensive things, because we're all offensive. No one in the world is perfect. No matter how much you believe you are. You're not. I'm not. And we all have our little skeletons and little quirks and little things that annoy each other. We have difference of beliefs. We don't all believe and think identically. And that's okay. You need to get over this stuff. Toughen up. Have some grit. Have some toughness. Don't be weak. And don't be stupid. You need to be getting your houses in order. Prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually, folks. And I think those tough times that we've talked about for so long, I think they're just about upon us. Thank you for watching. Catch you in the next video.